Okay, so moving on to the development section. Um, so this has also more little sextuplets, which triplets, I guess, which are a little bit irksome. So we have. And as with the earlier on, and more so now, it's choreography really important. And the fingers, that just feels terrible. And actually, I just want to comment on that. One of the takeouts, I've been working with producing some content with a fabulous pianist and teacher and author, William Westney. And so much of his approach, it's sort of this like simple without being simplistic, common sense, but incredibly profound. And one of the things is that playing that feels good sounds good. And it's so obvious to me when I listen to myself play, like on a recording, not when I'm in the moment, or listen to somebody else play, whether there's tension or not. Usually tension, and the wrong sort of tension produces a really ugly sound. So this feels good. I kept on getting the rhythm wrong here. It needs to be thought of as a set of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, the way of helping with it is to have a slight accent, or even just practice with an accent remove when playing, on the first note of the next set of triplets. So, and then moving to this octave bit. That one, also a classic, as I was saying earlier, I could practice with. And then you could also do it as chords instead of broken. And tapping. But that, be careful with that one. That could be a bit painful if done too much. And left hand, I didn't find these jumps too difficult, but if you are finding them difficult, firstly, one way of doing them is actually got this tip from sight reading, is to imagine the invisible octave. So bar 77, you've got from D to D there. So just imagine that where your thumb would be. It doesn't actually have. I think I actually do keep it over there. But if your thumb was over there, your fourth finger there. So because effectively almost all of those, or I think it is all of them, are actually just jumping an octave. So that's one way to just measure the distance, because most of us, I think we know that our hands, we know how our hands can go into an octave without even looking. Certainly by the stage that you'd be playing a piece like this, that would probably be the case. The other way of doing, another way of practicing is just first to just land and then correct where you are before playing. And that way you sort of program the right distance in from the start. The rest of this we have, it's pretty much the same thing. We've got the this one's a bit tricky here in bar 98. You've suddenly got to get to this chord. That would be a classic case for, to just do it without any, with just a lateral movement. Oh, that's quite tricky. But it's a classic opportunity for a rotation to help things along. I don't know if you see what I'm doing there from the other. That's so much easier. I'm exaggerating it and falling like that. Right. Then we get on to the false recapitulation, which is pretty much the same in terms of the technical aspects. That's a bit messy there, and the reason for that, it's a different part of the, instead of, so there's a different geography in the keyboard there, because we're now in D major instead of F major. So it's very much a case of just adjusting the movements there slightly, or the positioning there slightly. This is quite easy on the B flat here. This is a bit more difficult. So I would definitely use in and out movements to help there. Whereas this is more up down. Then we get back to the proper recapitulation, and then we have this motive again, but in a different key. And that the left hand could be practiced with accents and rhythms. The right hand here has more notes added, so this is a good opportunity for tapping. So something like tapping the middle notes. So split the top note there. So that's one way to practice that, and then in the left hand, there's a little bit of a tricky bit here from bar 150. So I would do that. That would definitely be. And then. With the accents in different places, that's a good option for that. Then this bit here. Also a good place for. But this is this needs a little bit of wrist circle here, this in bar 150. And then there's a sort of wrist circle movement as well. But we need, when we get to bar 159, 160, we need a bit more of a rotation as well. So a really neat little trick, I think he calls this doubles, that Graham Fitch showed me, is firstly you double the notes. Sorry, I'm just going to do the right hand. And what that does, I was a bit stiff there, but that effectively starts to program in the rotation element. Another way, to build on that, you do, instead of a set of 4, so 2 notes times by 2, you do 3 and 3 and an accent. See, that wasn't very good at all, so that's definitely something for you to practice. The next bit is pretty much the same as before, and it's a bit easier because, well, I find it a bit easier because there isn't a sharp, so it's all white notes, so it just makes the that up-down movement a bit more consistent. You don't have to do too many adjustments. Rest is all the same, and then we have this. as I mentioned earlier, I would practice these bits back to back. So in other words, I would actually learn the exposition, the last bit of the exposition and the last bit of the recapitulation together, back to back. Or I'd learn them separately, but quite quickly practice them back to back, because I think it's just really helpful that way to know how they are similar and different at the same time, because I think those are things that can often catch us out. But then learning it that way means that effectively it's a bit harder at first, but you'll have a more solid foundation. Well, I'd certainly find that I have a more solid foundation when I do that, and it means that now most of the hard work is actually done quite early on. And I think there's probably, I imagine there's some brain science behind that, in terms of what your brain then does is it's probably quite efficient in terms of knowing what is similar, and just becomes very aware of what it needs to do differently. So you're just learning what's different, as opposed to learning each thing as a sort of a standalone piece. Segment. Yeah. So those are just some tips for the first movement. I'll look at possibly doing some for the other movements as well, seeing how I go. But I hope you find that useful. I definitely recommend this piece, as I guess in some ways it's got very much the elements of the classical style and technique, all the Alberti basses and things, but I think that you can already see Beethoven is sort of innovating a bit and developing his own style a bit further. So there's also those elements of Beethoven style that come across here. And it's definitely quite technically challenging. I mean, there's not much in terms of runs those come later in the last movement, but runs in the right hand, or there's the semiquaver passages in the left hand. They're not that fast, but what is quite tricky is some of the trills, the chord positions, and definitely the Alberti bass, which is just a little bit more varied than you would traditionally or generally find in works from before this. So I definitely suggest doing it. It's also it's quite a fun piece, and it's not very long. If you take the repeats out, it's only like 3 or 4 minutes. So it's definitely something that can be played at gatherings and events where there's some kind of time constraint. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed that.